Armin Rahman believed that honesty was the foundation of every strong relationship. He believed that secrets were like termites, small at first, but capable of destroying everything from within. So he made it a rule in his life: never hide anything. At 28, Armin had a decent job at a marketing firm in Dhaka. He wasn't rich, but he was comfortable. His colleagues liked him because he was straightforward. His friends trusted him because he always told the truth, even when it hurt. And when he fell in love with Myra, he decided he would share everything with her. Myra was warm, intelligent, and calm, the opposite of Armin's restless personality. She loved poetry and soft music, while Armin preferred business podcasts and productivity books. Somehow, their differences balanced each other. From the beginning of their relationship, Armin promised himself he would never hide anything from her. So he didn't. He told her about his childhood crush in school. He told her about the time he failed a semester in university. He told her about his insecurities, how he sometimes felt he wasn't good enough. He even told her about the arguments he had with his parents. Myra listened patiently. Sometimes she smiled. Sometimes she comforted him. Sometimes she just stayed silent. "You trust me a lot," she once said softly. "Of course," Armin replied proudly. "There should be no secrets between us." At first, their relationship felt deeper because of it. Armin felt lighter after every confession. It was as if he was emptying his emotional baggage into a safe place. But slowly, things began to change. One evening, while they were having dinner at a small rooftop restaurant, Myra asked casually, "Do you still think about your ex?" Armin hesitated for a second, but honesty was his rule. "Sometimes," he admitted, "not because I love her anymore, just memories, you know?" Myra's smile faded slightly. "Oh, it's normal, right?" Armin added quickly. "I mean, we were together for 3 years." "Of course," she replied, but her voice wasn't as warm as before. Armin didn't notice the shift immediately. A week later, during another conversation, Armin mentioned that one of his female colleagues, Tanya, had complimented his presentation. "She said I was impressive," he said casually. Myra looked up from her phone. "You didn't mention her before." "There was nothing to mention," Armand laughed. "She's just a colleague." Again, that small change in her tone. Armand thought honesty meant safety, but he was slowly learning that information, once shared, cannot be taken back. One night, while scrolling through social media, Myra suddenly asked, "Why did you like your ex's photo last month?" Armand blinked. "What?" "You said you don't think about her, but you liked her picture." "It was just a reflex," he said honestly. "I didn't even think about it." "But you told me sometimes you remember her." Armand felt a strange pressure in his chest. "Myra, I told you that because I didn't want to lie." "And I appreciate that," she said. "But sometimes I wish I didn't know." That sentence stayed in his mind. Sometimes I wish I didn't know. A few days later, Armand had a rough day at work. His boss criticized him harshly in front of the team. Feeling frustrated, he vented to Myra on the phone. "I hate this job sometimes," he said angrily. "If I get a better offer, I'll leave immediately." Months passed. Then Armand got a promotion. It wasn't the dream job he once imagined, but it was a step forward. When he told Myra, she smiled, but then she said something unexpected. "I thought you hated that place." "I was just upset that day," Armand replied. "But you said you'd leave immediately if you could." Armand realized something important in that moment. Emotions are temporary, but words are permanent. Myra had stored every confession, every frustration, every careless thought, not because she wanted to hurt him, but because once something is heard, it becomes part of the listener. The biggest lesson came one rainy evening. They were discussing marriage. "I want to be fully honest with you again," Armand said, out of habit.
Sometimes I'm scared of commitment, not because of you, just in general. I'm afraid of failing. Myra was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, Armand, do you know something? What? You say you share everything because you trust me, but sometimes it feels like you're just thinking out loud.
You don't filter your emotions. You give me every passing fear, every temporary doubt. Armand stared at her. I'm human, she continued gently. When you say you're scared of commitment, even if it's just a moment of fear, I feel insecure. When you say you remember your ex, even casually, I feel compared. When you say you hate your job, I worry about our future. I thought honesty was always good, Armand whispered. Honesty is good, she said. But wisdom is knowing what to share, when to share, and how to share it. The rain outside grew heavier. For example, she added, if you're momentarily angry, maybe process it first before telling me you want to quit your job. If you're feeling insecure for a day, maybe understand it yourself before placing that weight on me. Armand finally understood. He had confused transparency with emotional dumping. He wasn't lying, but he wasn't being thoughtful either. Sharing everything doesn't always mean caring. Sometimes it means transferring your emotional chaos to someone else. In the following weeks, Armand changed. He didn't stop being honest. Instead, he paused before speaking. He asked himself, is this a passing emotion? Is this helpful to share? Am I seeking clarity or just relief? When he felt insecure, he reflected first. When he was angry at work, he waited before reacting. When he remembered his past, he kept it where it belonged, in the past. One evening, months later, Myra looked at him and smiled. You've changed. In a good way, he asked. In a mature way. Armand smiled back. He realized that relationships are not confession booths. They are partnerships. Trust is not built by saying everything that crosses your mind. It is built by being truthful, stable, and considerate. Because not every thought deserves a voice. Not every fear deserves an audience. And not every truth needs to be spoken immediately. Sometimes, love grows stronger not by sharing everything, but by understanding which parts of yourself need reflection before revelation. And that was the day Armand truly understood. Honesty is powerful, but wisdom makes it beautiful. After that rainy evening, Armand began practicing something he had never practiced before: silence. Not the cold, distant kind, but the thoughtful kind. At first, it felt unnatural. For years, he had believed that immediate honesty was the purest form of love. Now he was learning that maturity required pause. One afternoon at work, Tanya once again complimented him on a presentation. You've improved a lot, she said. You're more confident now. Old Armand would have gone home and casually mentioned it to Myra, just to be transparent. But this time he asked himself, why do I need to tell her this? Is it important? Is it helpful? Or am I just sharing because I feel obligated? He realized it was neither meaningful nor necessary. It was simply workplace conversation. So he didn't mention it, and nothing bad happened. No guilt, no secrets, no emotional weight. For the first time, Armand understood that privacy and secrecy are not the same thing. Privacy protects peace. Secrecy hides deception. One night, Myra noticed something different in him. You seem calmer lately, she said while they were walking beside the quiet lake near her apartment. I'm trying something new, Armand replied with a small smile. What? Thinking before speaking. She laughed softly. That's a big step. He nodded. I used to think love meant immediate sharing. But now I think love also means protecting the other person from unnecessary burdens. Myra squeezed his hand gently. But growth is never linear. A few weeks later, Armand had a dream about his ex. It was random and meaningless, just one of those strange dreams the mind creates. He woke up unsettled. The old version of him would have told Myra instantly, just to clear his conscience. Instead, he sat alone with the feeling. It was just a dream, he told himself. It doesn't reflect my present. He examined his emotions carefully. There was no longing, no regret, only memory. By evening, the feeling had completely faded. And for the first time, he realized something powerful. Not every thought needs validation from someone else. Some emotions are like clouds. If you wait, they pass. That night, as he watched Myra laugh at a silly video, he felt something deeper than before: stability. But the real test came months later. Myra received a job offer from another city, Chittagong. It was a better opportunity, higher salary, and career growth she had been dreaming of. I don't know what to do, she said nervously. If I go, we'll be long distance. Armin felt fear rise inside him. Long distance, loneliness, uncertainty. Dozens of anxious thoughts flooded his mind. What if we drift apart? What if she meets someone else? What if this changes everything? For a moment, he wanted to say it all, to spill every insecurity the way he used to. But he paused. He realized something. If he poured out his fear without processing it, it might influence her decision unfairly. So instead of reacting, he asked, "What do you want?" Myra looked surprised. "You're not going to tell me what you think." "I will," he said gently. "But first, I want to know what you want." She took a deep breath. "I want to go, but I'm scared of losing us." Armin felt the same fear. But now, he chose his words carefully. "I'm scared too," he admitted calmly. "But not because I doubt you. I'm scared because I care." That was the truth. Filtered, mature and steady. Not dramatic, not overwhelming. Just honest. They sat in silence for a while. "Would you support me if I go?" she asked softly. Armin looked at her, really looked at her, at the woman who had taught him the difference between honesty and wisdom. "Yes," he said, "because I don't want love that limits your growth. I want love that grows with you." Myra's eyes filled with tears. In that moment, Armin understood something even deeper. When you don't overshare your temporary fears, your words carry more strength. Months passed. Myra moved to Chittagong. The distance was not easy, but it was manageable. They communicated daily, but differently than before. Their conversations were lighter, clearer, and more intentional. Armin still shared his struggles, but only after understanding them himself. He still expressed his doubts, but in ways that invited partnership, not panic. He still spoke honestly, but with emotional responsibility. One evening, during a video call, Myra said something that made him smile. "You know," she said, "you feel stronger now." "Stronger," he laughed. "How?" "Before, your emotions were loud. Now they're steady. I feel safe with you." Safe. That word meant more than love, because love can be passionate. Love can be exciting. But safety, that is what makes it last. Armin leaned back in his chair, reflecting on his journey. He had once believed that holding back any thought was betrayal. Now he understood that discipline in speech is a form of respect. Sharing everything may feel brave, but sharing wisely is maturity. A year later, Myra returned to Dhaka, not because of distance, not because of pressure, but because she had grown, and so had he. They met again by the same lake where they had once talked about thinking before speaking. "You've changed my life," Armin said quietly. Myra smiled. "No, you changed your own life. I just reminded you." Armin looked at the water, calm and still. He finally understood the full meaning of the lesson. Don't share everything. Share what strengthens. Share what builds. Share what heals. Because love doesn't need every thought. It needs understanding. And sometimes, silence is the most loving thing you can give. Life after Myra returned to Dhaka felt different. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just steady. And for the first time, Armin realized that steadiness was far more powerful than intensity. They began planning their future seriously: savings, careers, families, responsibilities. The conversations were no longer filled with emotional storms. Instead, they were grounded. But growth always brings new tests. One evening, Armin attended a corporate networking event. The atmosphere was glamorous, bright lights, confident executives, laughter that felt slightly rehearsed. During the event, he met a senior manager from another company who offered him a potential job opportunity abroad. Singapore, the manager said. Higher pay, international exposure. Think about it. Armin's heart raced. This was big, bigger than anything he had imagined. On the ride home, his mind was full of thoughts. If I go, it could change my life. If I go, what happens to Myra? What if she thinks I'm choosing career over us? Old Armin would have called her immediately, pouring out excitement mixed with anxiety. But now he waited. He went home, sat quietly, took out a notebook. He wrote down his thoughts, pros, cons, fears, hopes. By the time he finished, the emotional storm inside him had softened. The next evening, he met Myra. I want to talk to you about something important, he said calmly. She looked at him attentively. Okay, I received an offer possibility abroad. Nothing confirmed yet, but it's serious. She blinked. Abroad? Yes. Singapore. There was silence. But this silence wasn't heavy like before. It was thoughtful. What do you feel about it? She asked. Armin smiled slightly. I've thought about it carefully. It's a good opportunity. But I don't want to decide alone. Myra studied his face. You're not panicking, she said. I already did that yesterday, he replied honestly, making her laugh. Then he added gently, I don't want to run toward opportunity out of excitement or reject it out of fear. I want to choose wisely. That was the difference. Before, he would have shared raw emotion. Now, he shared process clarity. Myra took his hand. If you go, we'll figure it out. I don't want either of us to shrink for the relationship. Armin felt proud, not just of her, but of himself. Because this time, his words didn't create insecurity. They created teamwork. Weeks later, after discussions and careful planning, Armin decided to decline the offer. Not because of fear, but because he realized he wasn't ready to leave his family and build something so far away yet. When he told Myra, she asked gently, Are you sure you're not sacrificing for me? He shook his head. No, I'm choosing timing. There's a difference. That sentence surprised even him. He had grown, but the final lesson came unexpectedly. One afternoon, Armin discovered something that unsettled him. A mutual friend casually mentioned that Myra had once considered ending their relationship during the difficult phase months ago, the time when his oversharing had made her insecure. The information hit him hard. For a brief moment, his old instincts returned. Why didn't she tell me? Why did she hide that from me? Shouldn't partners share everything? His mind felt restless, but instead of confronting her immediately, he paused. He asked himself, if she had told me back then, would it have helped or destroyed us? Was she hiding betrayal or protecting stability while she figured out her emotions? For 2 days, he stayed quiet, not cold, not distant, just reflective. Then he met her and spoke calmly. I heard something recently, he began gently, that there was a time you weren't sure about us. Myra froze. Who told you? It doesn't matter, he said softly. What matters is it true? She looked down. After a long pause, she nodded. Yes, there was a time I felt overwhelmed. Not because I didn't love you, but because I felt emotionally overloaded. Armin felt a small ache in his chest, but not anger. Why didn't you tell me? She looked up at him carefully. Because I knew it was a passing phase. If I told you in that moment, it would have broken your confidence. I needed space to understand my feelings first. Silence filled the room, and suddenly, Armin understood the full circle of the lesson. She had done what he had learned to do. She had filtered temporary emotion. She had processed before speaking. She had chosen stability over impulsive honesty. And because of that, they survived. Armin exhaled slowly. Thank you, he said. Myra looked confused. For what? For not sharing everything. Tears formed in her eyes. You're not angry. He shook his head gently. No, I would have been months ago. But now I understand. Not every doubt deserves a voice. They sat together, closer than ever. That night, as Armin walked home, he reflected deeply. Honesty is essential, but emotional discipline is wisdom. Oversharing can create wounds. Undersharing can create distance. But thoughtful sharing, that creates trust. Years later, when Armin and Myra finally got married, their vows were simple. I promise to be honest, Armin said, but I also promise to be thoughtful with my words. Because he had learned something many people learn too late. You don't build intimacy by exposing every passing thought. You build it by sharing what strengthens the foundation. Some emotions need discussion. Some fears need partnership, but some thoughts need silence, so they can disappear quietly without harming what truly matters. And that was the quiet strength Armin carried into his future. Not the strength of saying everything, but the strength of knowing what not to say. 5 years later, Armin stood on the balcony of their apartment, watching the city lights flicker beneath the evening sky. Life had moved forward. He and Myra were married now. Not the dramatic, fairy tale version of marriage, but the real one. Shared bills, shared responsibilities, shared silence, and shared growth. Inside the apartment, Myra was reading on the couch while soft instrumental music played in the background. The room felt peaceful, not because there were no problems in life, but because they had learned how to handle them. Armin smiled to himself. There had been many moments over the years when he could have gone back to his old habits. Moments when he felt jealous. Moments when he felt insecure. Moments when work stress made him question everything. But now, instead of reacting, he reflected. One evening, for example, he saw a message pop up on Myra's phone from a male colleague. It was completely professional. Still, a flicker of insecurity passed through him. The old Armin would have said immediately, "Who is he? Why is he texting you at night? Is there something I should know?" But the new Armin paused. He observed the feeling instead of obeying it. This is insecurity, he told himself, not evidence. Later that night, he casually asked about her day. She mentioned the colleague naturally, explaining a project they were working on. There was no tension, no suspicion, no unnecessary storm, and the insecurity faded on its own. That was the power of emotional patience. Months later, they faced a much bigger challenge. Myra suffered a career setback. A promotion she had worked hard for was given to someone else. She came home quiet that evening. "I wasn't chosen," she said softly. Armin saw the disappointment in her eyes. He wanted to fix it, to give advice, to motivate, to speak. But instead, he remembered something important. Not every moment requires words. So he sat beside her. He held her hand. He listened. After a long silence, she said, "Thank you for not trying to solve it." He smiled gently. Sometimes, sharing doesn't need solutions. It just needs space. That night, Armin realized something deeper than ever before. Earlier in his life, he believed sharing meant speaking. Now he understood, sharing also means holding space, holding silence, holding each other without overwhelming the moment. Years passed. Their relationship became quieter, stronger, less dramatic. One day, while cleaning old boxes, Armin found a small notebook, the one he had used years ago when he first practiced thinking before speaking. Inside, he had written a simple sentence. "Is this helpful to share?" He sat down and read it again. So simple, yet it had changed everything. That evening, he showed it to Myra. She read it and laughed softly. "You really trained yourself." "I had to," he said. "I thought love meant transparency without limits. I didn't realize love also means emotional responsibility." Myra looked at him with warmth. "You know what I learned," she said. "What?" "That silence is not distance. It's protection." Armin nodded slowly. In the early days of their relationship, he had feared silence. He thought silence meant secrets. He thought quiet meant disconnection. Now he understood that healthy silence is built on trust. It means you don't need to explain every thought to feel secure. It means you don't need to confess every passing emotion to feel close. It means you trust the stability of the bond. One night, as they lay in bed, Myra asked him something unexpected. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be? Armin thought for a long moment. Then he said quietly, I would tell him, don't share everything. Share what builds. Myra smiled. Because sometimes, he continued, we share to relieve ourselves. But love isn't about unloading every emotional weight. It's about carrying some of it with strength. He realized that true maturity wasn't about suppressing feelings. It was about understanding them first. There is a difference between honesty and impulsiveness. There is a difference between vulnerability and emotional flooding. There is a difference between openness and chaos. In the end, their relationship wasn't perfect. They still argued sometimes. They still misunderstood each other occasionally. They were still human. But now, their words were intentional. When they spoke about fears, it was with clarity. When they shared pain, it was with purpose. When they expressed doubts, it was with stability. And when emotions were temporary, they allowed them to pass quietly. Years later, sitting together by that same lake where everything once shifted, Armin looked at the calm water. I used to think love meant saying everything, he said. And now? Myra asked. Now I think love means choosing what deserves to be said. The wind moved gently across the water. There were no dramatic confessions left, no heavy emotional storms, just two people who had learned that words are powerful and therefore must be used wisely. Because not every thought deserves sound. Not every fear deserves attention. Not every truth deserves immediate expression. Some emotions are meant to be understood privately. Some doubts are meant to fade quietly. Some feelings are meant to be processed before being presented. And that was the final lesson. Don't share everything. Share what strengthens trust. Share what deepens respect. Share what creates safety. Because love does not grow from constant confession. It grows from thoughtful connection. And sometimes, the strongest form of love is knowing when to stay silent